everyone, welcome to class. In today's class we're going to be learning how to make the veil net turban. And before we get started, I will introduce the material that will be needed for this project. Here is what I have with me. This is my poly fabric. I'll be using this other one too. It is called your baby fabric. You can get any stretchy fabric of your choice. I'll be making use of my veil net. I'll be making use of a foam. I'll be making use of a foam and my scissors and tape. So let's get started. So I'm about cutting my turban. When you want to cut a turban is divided into two parts: the band and the body itself. So I'm going to cut out the band first. I'm using 24 inches in length for my band, and I'm also using 5 inches in width for my band. So for the body of my turban, I'll still be using 24 inches. I'll still be using 24 inches in length, and the width of my turban will be 11 inches. So 24 inches in length, body of my turban, and this is the band of my turban. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my band. I'll fold it into 2 equal halves like this and run a stitch on it. I'll fold it into 2 equal halves and run it. Kindly note that this material does not have front and back. So if you are using a material that have the front and back, that means you are folding it to the back, you run a stitch, then you turn it inside out. So that's what I'll be doing now. I'll fold my material into 2 like this and run a stitch on it, and once I'm done, I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm done sewing it together. So I'll put it like this. I'll pick the body of my turban. I'll pick the body. This is the right side. Let's assume this is the right side, though it doesn't have the right and the wrong side. So I'll pick the right side. I'll make sure that the right side of the body of my turban is facing the right side of my band. The right side of the body of my turban is facing the right side of my band, like this. This is how we'll place it. I'll place it on top of the stitch, and I'll take it to my sewing machine and sew it. I'll take it to my sewing machine and sew it. Make sure that when you are sewing, you are sewing it below this stitch. You are sewing it below this stitch, so that by the time you turn it, this stitch up here is not going to show. Do you understand what I'm saying? You are sewing it below. Once you place it like this, you bring your stitch downward a little, then you sew. So that's what I'll be doing now. Okay, so this is it. What I was explaining initially, that you have to make the stitch, you have to run the stitch below the first one. This is it. You can see that as I open it up, this is the stitch I run on the band itself. Can you see? This is it. So when I place the body of my turban on it like this, I brought my stitch down. Can you see it? So you can see that this one is below the first stitch. It is below the first stitch. Can you see it? So at the end of it, this is what I have. Now, if you have a weaving machine, you go ahead, take it to your weaving machine and weave it. But if you don't have a weaving machine, there is a scissors that you are going to use to cut it out. To cut your turban, the band, there's a scissors you are going to use. It is called the zigzag scissors. When you use the zigzag, instead of using this straight one, when you use the zigzag scissors, it's going to give it a little bit of finishing effect. So once you use that, you don't need to you don't need to weave it again. But for the purpose of this tutorial, I use these scissors, and but I won't be weaving it. But you can as well weave your own, though it's optional. You can weave it. So after that, this is what I have. This is the back, and this is the front. So I'm going to fold it into 2 like this. I'm folding it into 2 equal halves. So at this down part here, I'm going to come up by 1 inch. Then I'll take it to my sewing machine. I'm going to run a stitch from here. I'll leave for about like half an inch. half an inch. I'll run a stitch half an inch. You leave half an inch space. So this is my half inch here. I'm going to run a stitch all the way from here to this place. Then I curve my hand like this. I curve my hand. Then I run my stitch half an inch. I'll run a stitch half an inch. You leave half an inch space. So this is my half inch here. I'm going to run a stitch all the way from here to this place. Then I curve my hand like this. I curve my hand. Then I run my stitch. You just follow the chalk. You are going to run the stitch like this. Then when you get to this place, you curve your hand like this. Then you curve your hand. From here, you run the stitch. You curve your hand to this place. So that's what I'll be doing now. And I'll be right back to show you. So this is it. You can see I've run my stitch. You can see I curve my hand here. Straight down. And this is it. So the next thing I'll be doing is I'm going to be running a gather stitch or a loose stitch. You can call it any one. So I'm going to start from here. Take note, the joining of the band and the body of the band at the point where they meet, that is where I'm going to start from. I'm not starting from the beginning. I'm not starting from here, but I'm starting at the point where the body of the band and the band meet. So I'm going to run my loose stitch all the way down to this place. Just watch what I'm doing. Can you see it? You can see that the stitch is loose. You can see it. So I'm following this pattern. And that's what I'll be doing all the way down. So when I'm done, I will show you how it looks like. So this is it. After I run a loose stitch, then you are going to draw it. Once you draw it, you cut off, then you tie it. You're tying it to secure your thread. So this is the back. And this is the front. Basically, this is a turban cap. This is the back. And this is the front. So for this tutorial, we are doing the veil net turban. So this is the first step. The second step is to add our band and the veil net.